We're in eastern Italy for the 7th World Duathlon Championships. This is an area steeped in history dating back to ancient Greece. It went through the Middle Ages and also the splendor and magnificence of the Italian Renaissance. Ferrara is not just about memories with its beauty, landscape and history, but it's also a modern city which has developed from the rich historical past. Last year, these duathlon championships were in Cancun, Mexico, and the winner was Switzerland's Natascha Badmann.
The hours that I do duathlon per day is not exactly to be told, because I also train for triathlon, and there it is with swimming. And for this year I only had 3 duathlons. This was the European Championships where I was second, Zofingen, this I won, and then this is my 3rd race, the World Championships here.
And I suppose without Irma Heeren, the European Duathlon Champion, she must be one of the favourites here, along with Jackie Gallagher, who recently won the World Triathlon Championships in Mexico. So this is the 7th running of these championships.
I don't feel the responsibility of to be the great favourite on this race, because he has probably 6 or 8 other athletes. They are very strong and very fast. Sure, I'm one of these 8 or 10 athletes who can win or can take a medal tomorrow, but we have to look what's going on in the race.
Well, Ferrara is a centre of culture. The university was founded here back in 1391, and today many international companies have their research centres in Ferrara. It's also a centre for music. It's got an opera house, the ballet, the Street Buskers Festival, and a great painting exhibition in the Piazza di Monte. And of course there's the famous Este Castle, built in 1385. It's the symbol of the city, representing the power of the Este family, who governed Ferrara through the splendour of the Renaissance. But Ferrara also has another side. It's the first Italian city to host any multi-sport world championships. These duathlon championships represent a confidence in the Italians and Ferrara to organise a world-class event. The city walls of Ferrara, a creation of the Renaissance military genius, has become a training site for some of the great athletes, including Orlando Pizzolata, a 2-time winner of the New York City Marathon. And we'll see a bit of Pizzolata today, because he's the man on the bike leading both runs. So 2 runs and a bike, an opening 10-kilometer run, then a 40-kilometer bike, and finally a 5-kilometer run to finish. Back in 1990, these first championships were held in Cathedral City, and Thea Zebedzwa from Holland and Kenny Souza were victorious. And we asked Kenny Souza about the sport of duathlon.
Oh, I feel very fortunate that I was able to start in the sport when it was kind of just created in the U.S. And, I'm flattered. It's great. Just because as the sport has evolved, competition has gotten a lot better. And, it gets kind of hard losing when you're used to winning. But, I feel comfortable playing that role, and I'll take it.
Well, Ferrara does actually have a tradition of cycling, because Professor Francesco Conconi at the university here, he was the man who brought in anaerobic thresholds for the application of training. And the likes of Francesco Mozart and Claudio Chiappucci have come here for his advice. So this is the Oresto Square, where the opening ceremony was held. So the 1996 ITU World Championships, the 7th running of these World Championships. This is Oresto Square, and down in the transition area is Steve True.
Just 3 weeks ago, we were in Cleveland, Ohio for the ITU World Triathlon Championships. Over the distance of 1,500 metre swim, 40-kilometre ride and a 10K run. The classic triathlon distance which has been accepted for the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. Then just last weekend, we stayed in the USA, over in Muncie for the World Long Course Triathlon Championships. But now we've crossed the Atlantic, here to Ferrara, Italy, for the ITU World Duathlon Championships. A 10-kilometre run, 40-kilometre cycle, and finally a 5-kilometre run. Duathlon started as an offshoot of triathlon, which triathletes began to use as a training addition. Perhaps in the winter they didn't have the facilities to go open water swimming, they weren't able to get in the swimming pools. But to maintain that race fitness, they worked on the running and the cycling, and thus duathlon was born. But now, duathlon has become a sport in its own right. We see the classic distance now of a 10-kilometre run, a 40-kilometre cycle and a 5-kilometre run to finish off with. It's the 7th running of the ITU World Duathlon Championships. We're here in Ferrara, Italy, the birthplace of the Renaissance for the #1 duathlon event in the world this year, the World Duathlon Championships.
Oh, thanks, Steve. These are some of the favourites. This is the American Paul Thomas. And in recent years, apart from Ken Souza, the Americans have been wanting for duathletes, so hopefully Paul will do the business today. Jonathan Hall from Australia, very strong Australian team here. Hall's got a cycling background, and he's certainly one to look out for. Another Aussie, this is Tim Bentley, finished second just a week ago in Calais in the European Duathlon.
There are many favorites in the women's race. There are many good athletes here. There may be 10 different women who could win this race, and I think that I am one of them. I've spent much time also thinking about my competition and how they might race so that I can race them the best that I can. This will be my first race drafting in a duathlon. I race bicycles all the time, and in those races that are just drafting, I think that this will be a new challenge for the sport. I will have to decide after this race how I feel about drafting. It definitely changes who can win, and it definitely changes the strategy.
Para mí es muy bueno el drafting porque es una ventaja muy grande para los corredores y una desventaja muy grande para los ciclistas, pero a mí en lo personal me beneficia porque soy mejor corredor que ciclista. De la Italia, bueno, pues yo conozco muy poco. Ferrara es la primera ciudad que conozco.
He said he doesn't really know much about Italy. Ferrara is the first Italian city he's visited, but the Italian people are very calm. The best thing that he likes is that there are many cyclists, and that's great for him. So we're back into the transition area. This is Enrico Campagna of Italy. And that's another Italian, Marta Monzani, racing in the women's division. So we're on the start line for the men. Peter Willemann from Switzerland, Norbert Domnick from Austria.
We're here in Ferrara, Italy for the World Duathlon Championships to see the best endurance athletes in the world. Just two people not here. Irma Heren from the Netherlands, she's unfortunately nursing a broken collarbone, and Oscar Galindez, last year's world champion from Argentina. However, we do have the rest of the best of the world. Watch out for Norman Stadler from Germany, world champion 2 years ago. Urs Delsberger from Switzerland. He's been clearing up the European circuit this year. He is in fantastic form. On the women's side, Jackie Gallagher, the present world triathlon champion. She's not a great swimmer. She's hotly tipped to take it here today, but she'll be up against Dolorita Gerber from Switzerland, Sybil Blursch from Switzerland, and Natasha Bad from Switzerland. The big three from Europe. It's going to be a great race. The best endurance athletes in the world. They're here today in Ferrara, Italy.
Yeah, it's a shame Emma here, and the Dutch girl isn't racing. She broke her collarbone just a few weeks before this event, so she's out. But of course, as Steve told us, Natasha Badman is certainly in fine form, as is the world triathlon champion Jackie Gallagher. But this is the men's race. They set off first, and we had a quick glimpse in the middle of Norman Stormen Stadler, number 2. Number 40, that's Erwin Villeman from France. Peter Villeman of Switzerland. Number 95 was up there, as was Magnola Manciavecchi from Italy. He wore number 62. So it's a quick 200-meter sprint around the Roman amphitheatre here. Then it's out into the streets of Ferrara for 2 laps of 5 kilometers. Very tight technical turn, so it's turns on the course, so it's very important that the athletes get a good position. ITU, the International Triathlon Union's World Duathlon Championships from Ferrara in northeast Italy. This is the men's race. We're working up through. Had a quick glimpse of number 23. There was Brendan Brazier. 79, Sasa Oraja from Slovenia, but out in front at the moment is number 11. That's Andrew Noble. Right behind him, Chris Lee, 2 Aussies up the front. Steve Lawrence from France is also there. Erwin Villeman from France with him as well. And Norman Stadler also in contention. And we just had a quick glimpse at the front of also Britain's John Taylor. He wears number 49. But there's number 1, the man who won the Powerman Zofingen this year, Urs Delsberger, won it on home soil for the 2nd time, as did Natasha Badman, who will be racing a little later in the women's division. 92 is Christian de Man, also from Switzerland. Strong Swiss team, and they must be one of the main contenders with the Australian team. So Delsberger, a bit off the pace at the moment. Tim Bentley stretching out here, that's number 6. See Bruno Stanger from Italy just beside him. Number 30 is Jan Hansen, who we had that good race a couple of weeks ago in Bad Waltersdorf. And Bruno Stanger, 64, just going through the picture. So you can see how tight and technical the turn in. There's Delsberger going through with Dirk Stoffman, it looked. I mentioned Orlando Pizzolata, that's him on the bicycle, leading them. And we spoke to Andrew Noble. In fact, that's Orlando Pizzolata talking to the leader. He's not quite talked to Noble, but this is certainly what Noble had to say.
Last week I had a good race at Calais, so that was very good training, and it was a good indication of what I was doing. But I'm training with my training partner for the last 8 weeks, Tim Bentley, and he has taught me a lot on stretching.
I don't know if Noble understands any Italian, but certainly Pizzolata's talking away there. And he's talking to Maurizio Lorenzetti, number 59, who's also up there. Just all in black there, that's John Taylor. There's the Italian Lorenzetti right behind John Taylor. Of course, Taylor's got the faux running background. Had a good race in Powerman Lanzarote earlier this year. He finished 6th, but he led for some considerable time. But it's still 2 Aussies, Noble and Lee, setting the pace at the moment with a French duel of Laurent. And also in there, the Mexican Mario Salazar, who we saw or talked to us earlier. He's actually a 2:11 marathon runner. I don't think he's related to Alberto Salazar. The American, of course, like Pizzolata, has won the New York Marathon on a couple of occasions, but certainly Noble setting a cracking pace at the moment. He's stretching them down the road, and he's not making it easy for them. But back with the women, They're just about ready to go. Jackie Gallagher. Right in the middle there was Dolly de Gerber and Badman. And right on the far of the picture, Antje Poelman from Germany, who won the last race in the European Cup at Bad Woltersdorf. So the women are away. They race exactly the same course as the men. 10 kilometers, 2 laps of 5, making up the opening run, then the 40-kilometer bike, and the final 5-kilometer run to finish. Looks as though the German athlete, Susanne Niemeyer, is setting the pace at the moment, but I don't think she is one of the favorites. Certainly Nancy Rydell is there. Gerber must be in for a good shot, as is Natasha Badman, and not forgetting Jackie Gallagher, of course. There's also Debbie Nelson in the New Zealand athlete who spends her time here in Europe, and she's having a pretty good year once again. And we've got a good Italian also in the field, Valentina Talcheri, who we saw in the European Cup race. So that's back with the men, and they're at about 2.5 kilometers at the moment. 88 is Eduardo Arenal, the Spanish athlete. It looks as though Laurent is still behind the Frenchman, but up front is Tim Bentley, and Salazar is in contention as well, as is John Taylor and Andrew Noble. 53 is Edwin van Dort, who won a couple of the European Cup races this year. Looks like Jonathan Hall with the blonde hair is also in contention. So working through. David Owen of Australia, just gone through the picture. Certainly the French are packing them in at the moment, though. Had a quick glimpse of Kotowski, the Polish athlete. He's in blue and white, but it's still Noble leading with Maurizio Lorenzetti, the Italian, on his shoulder. John Taylor's in there. Tim Bentley is just behind. So those are the four who've done most of the work early on. But of course, it's more than just the 10-kilometer run. It's the 40-kilometer bike to second, the second discipline, and then the final 5-kilometer run. But we caught up with Jackie Gallagher, one of the favourites for the
I think
women.
it'll be a really good course. It's interesting with lots of turns on the run and both the bike and the run. It'll be interesting. There's places where you can see other competitors and you can't see other competitors, and I think it'll be really good to have the course like that. The bike is going to be very testing. It's not easy. The corners will make it more difficult, which is good.
Well, Jackie's trying to do a unique thing within multisport. She's trying to win the triathlon and the duathlon world championships in 1 year. No athlete has done that. That's Jackie right in the middle of the picture with Lucy Smith on our right, her left. The only athlete who's won both duathlon and world championships and triathlon world championships is Greg Welsh. He won the triathlon back in 1990 in Orlando, and then in 93 he won the duathlon world championships. So it's Smith up there, Gallagher, Ellie Kennedy from Australia is also in there, Debbie Nelson is there, Kirsten Rudolph, all in black, is also, and the Italian favorite Valentina Talcheri is also there. But this is the men going back through. There's Delsberger. He's trying to move through the pace field just a little bit. But the Italian, Lorenzetti, is leading with Tim Bentley and John Taylor behind. This is Lorenzetti, the local favourite. Certainly the Italians would love a home victory, but I don't know about the probability. He doesn't have a lot of pedigree in duathlon, does Lorenzetti. Neither does Maurizio Salazar, who's setting off here. Looks like he's going off like a jackrabbit. But with the 2:11 marathon time, I don't know what he's like over the 10 kilometers, but he's certainly not hanging around. Well, that's halfway. They're just going by the transition area in the Roman amphitheatre. Tremendous backdrop for these world championships. But I suspect the athletes are thinking the course is a little tight and a little technical at the moment. This chopping and changing of direction is not easy to keep the rhythm up. So there we are. Those are the standings after the first loop of 5 kilometers. So the field is stretching through. That first 5 kilometers with the pace they've set has really spread them out. These are the women. There's Talcheri on the right of the picture, number 280. Interesting athlete. She is from a track and field background. What about Lucy Smith on the right of the picture?
In the weeks before the World Championships, I decided to come to Europe and actually do some races in Europe because the competition is so strong here. So I did lots of interval training on my bike and on my running, and I also participated in races in Europe, such as that ITU race last weekend, to prepare for the kind of competition that would be at the World Championships.
Well, she certainly had the best preparation because she won that event in Calais. So it's Gallagher and Talcheri, both from running backgrounds. Of course, Gallagher has represented Australia in the cross-country World Championships, and Talcheri has represented Italy on the track in the early 90s. So it looks as though Tim Bentley is setting the pace. We can still hear Orlando Pizzolata giving great advice. Obviously he thinks these Australians can speak English. So it's Bentley going through. Here's Noble in second place. Bentley's trying to make a bit of a break. We saw Salazar is just behind, as is John Taylor of Great Britain. And Lorenzetti, the Italian, is also there. But Bentley's certainly stretching them out here. There's Salazar, Lorenzetti, Taylor. So Bentley has spent some time, considerable time actually, with Andrew Noble at altitude, preparing for this event, just going past some of the slower junior women, it looks like, at the moment. Finished, what, 6th in the World Championships when they were down in Tasmania, Hobart, or Hobart, Tasmania, should I say. And we were down there because the English cricket team was still also playing at that time and got thrashed by the Australians. So let's hope the Europeans can do something about the Australians this time. But at the moment, 2 Australians are leading. It's Jackie Gallagher for the women, with the Italian Valentina Talcheri right on her shoulder. And for the men, it's Tim Bentley and Andrew Noble, who are setting the pace in the men's division. So Gallagher and Talcheri showing their running pedigree. They really are going hell for leather at the moment.
Pues como lo había dicho, yo creo son los corredores más rápidos.
So Salazar tells us again that we asked him about the favourites, and he says the favourites have to be the best ones here today. Well, that's pretty good. I heard about the Italian and the Canadian, and they've already run very fast times, but I don't know many of the other athletes, as I haven't really had the chance to race internationally this year. I'm sure that Galindez, that's Oscar Galindez, the defending champion, would have been the favourite, but he's not here, so who knows going to win. He would certainly like to win, but he's in the top 4 at the moment. But it's Tim Bentley into the transition area first, with number 11, Andrew Noble, right behind him. John Taylor has just gone through. Salazar is in there. This is Lorenzi. And as they depart for the bike, we'll go for a short break. Welcome back. We're with the women's race in the International Triathlon Union's World Duathlon Championships in Ferrara. We're back in the transition area. This is Jackie Gallagher, the lead woman. She's in the bike park with Valentina Talcheri. She was just in with her. So now it's a quick change. Gallagher ran 31:58 for that opening 10 kilometers, so that's pretty swift. That's Kerstin Rudolph, the German athlete, doing well in the European Duathlon Cup this year. Certainly did well very early on, had a good race, finished 3rd in those European Championships, European Duathlon Championships in Mafra, Portugal. And like the other 2 of Gallagher and Talcheri, she's a good runner. So there we are, those are the standees for the men. In fact, Lorenzetti was given 28 minutes and 38. And Bentley, who went out first onto the bike, 28:44. Jackie Gallagher, she leads at the moment for the women.
We're seeing a standard here which is absolutely fantastic on both the men and the women's field. Jackie Gallagher from Australia is awesome. She's already the World Triathlon Champion this year. She's absolutely dominated the first 10K run and really laid down a challenge to the rest of the field. On the men's side, Mario Salazar from Mexico is working through as hard as he can now, but I'll be interested to see what happens with the pacing talents of Urs Delsberger from Switzerland and Norman Stadler from Germany as they gradually move through, I'm sure, on the 40-kilometre bike section.
Well, here we are, we're back with the men, and it is Urs Delsberger setting the pace at the moment. Looks like Noble is with him. Number 1, although he's actually should be wearing number 2. The defending champion Oscar Galindez is not racing, so they've awarded number 1 to Urs Delsberger, and I for one wouldn't argue with that, seeing that he's won I suppose the other big duathlon of the season, the Powerman Zofingen, which is just across the border in Switzerland. And in fact, I understand that Zofingen has been awarded the World Long Course Duathlon Championships for the next 3 years. So we'll have a short course, which this is, or the classic course, as Steve True has told us, and then the long course, which will be the Zofingen distance. This is Salazar. Let's see what he can do on the bike. He told us that he's going to try to take advantage of the others. I mentioned that this is the first time that drafting is allowed or taking place. That's Tim Bentley, number 6, who was first out on the bike. Jonathan Hall, the bleached hair Australian, is obviously a surfer. And we spoke to...
well, we've just come back from training at Alpe d'Huez village and been training in Paris the last 2 weeks to do speed work.
Well, I said he hasn't done any harm at the moment. Back with him, and that's Susanna Nedergaard on the front with Debbie Nelson. So 2 stalwarts of the European scene, although of course Nelson is New Zealand. And just in front of them, we've got the likes of Kirsten Rudolph. Jackie Gallagher's also up there. Lucy Smith is in contention as well.
I think being a drafting legal race, the first run will be important because it will establish who will be together on the bike. And then, you know, the bike ride, maybe there'll be some breakaways, people catching up. But I think really the last run will be the deciding point.
Well, one of the problems is very few of these athletes have actually been in a drafting race before this event. So it's going to be a learning curve for most of them. Certainly Delsberger, he's been in some drafting races on bike events, but not in a duathlon. There's Stadler on the outside. Looks like Noble is right on his wheel, trying to take a bit of a tow, and he's got to get pretty close to him to get full advantage. Looks like Lorenzetti is still there, the Italian athlete who recorded the fastest run split. Maas is just on the back end as well, the Dutch athlete. So Maas has come through. Here he is. This is Maas. And he had another good race down in those European Duathlon Championships in Mafra, Portugal, right at the beginning of the season. That does seem a long time ago, back in, April, down in Portugal, in Cascais. Not Cascais, that's of course. In fact, it's just up the road from Cascais, where those European Championships took place, back in 1988, 89. But this is Stadler, taking a bit of a breather. But if they're going to take advantage of the drafting, they've got to start working together. This is the young Polish athlete who really has come out of nowhere. Look at his bike. He's pretty basic, isn't it, compared with a lot of them. This is Delsberger. I think this course is most probably a little short, little flat, and a little technical for Delsberger.
Well, what about drafting? For me, it's a new experience because it's the first race I have ever done in duathlon with drafting. I know that we have to run fast as possible on the first run on the 10K, and then we have to look what's going on, how much athletes are together for the bike ride, and it's difficult to say if it's possible to have a normal race with drafting, because we have not that much experience at duathletes with drafting.
Well, that really does sum it up. Here the women in a bit of a pack here. That's Rudolph in the black. Suzanne Nedergaard, Debbie Nelson's there. Lucy Smith is also in contention. Jackie Gallagher is also in that pack. So all the favourites are bunched together, and I suppose they're waiting to see who is going to make the break. If anyone can make the break. Rudolph goes down the outside, making a bit of a move, but I think it's going to have to be a very strong biker to be able to jump the pack in either the men's or the women's division. This is Lucy Smith on a bit of a row from that victory in Canada, just in front of Susanna Nedergaard. And Nedergaard really didn't have a good early season. She had that accident in Mafra where she fell over on the bike, on the run course, on one of the fierce descents on that opening 10-kilometer run there, and never really recovered. Looks like Jonathan Hall, though. He's trying to make a bit of a break here. Bodie in their Australian uniform, and he's got away a little bit, and this is going to be quite interesting. Very good aerodynamic position by the biker, because that's his pedigree. He is a time trialist in Australia, so he's certainly used to this, being out on his lonesome. But the theory is the pack shouldn't let him go. And this is the pack, and are they going to let him go? There's Hugh Maas right in the middle. Delsberger's having a bit of a chat, trying to wind the pace up, I suspect, because he knows the danger. He knows Hall is a very good biker. And if he lets him get too far away, that could cause problems in the final discipline, the 5-kilometer run. So Hugh Maas takes it up with Storm and Norman Stadler right beside it. And of course, Stadler made that great break in Hobart, Tasmania a couple of years ago and got away and went on to win the World Championships. And Delsberger was extremely disappointed. We've got one of the problems here. It's a 3-lap bike course, and you can see now the men are now mixing up with the women. So one way or the other, the women might take a toe off the men, which I suppose is the more likely of the two. But you never know. Some of the men might take a bit of a toe off some of the women. And I mentioned it's very technical, and if these packs get too big, we could have a few thrills and spills on some of the bends. Andrew Noble is still there, but we're back with the women, and it's Debbie Nelson on the wheel of Kerstin Rudolph, and it looks as though Lucy Smith is dragging them out at the moment. And the Danish athlete, Susanne Nedergaard, is also in there. One person we've got to look out for is Natasha Badman. She was off the pace during the opening run, and this is her forte, the bike section, but this is Debbie Nelson. The men going through with some of the women leaders. I think this is one of the juniors on the front end here has been caught up in this group. Smith in red on the far side of the picture. This is Debbie Nelson right beside her in the black. Looks like we've got one of the Spanish athletes in here. And Nedergaard was also there, but back with the men. We're chopping and changing here. It's fast and furious as this sport. There's no respite in the sport of duathlon or indeed the sport of triathlon. So it certainly looks like some of the women are mixed up with the men there, but this is Storm and Norman Stadler on the front of the picture, taking in some of the beautiful scenery that Ferrara has on offer. So it looks as though they're coming up to the end of the first lap. This is Noble, number 11, set that cracking pace on the run. Now he's in the pack, but still out front is Jonathan Hall. And I think Stadler's certainly trying to do something about it. He's trying to run him down, get some of that deficit back. So they're coming up on lap 2 now. The women are still on their first lap. It's Lucy Smith. In fact, they're coming up towards the end of the first lap. Lucy Smith is there. There's Debbie Nelson, Kerstin Rudolph, the German athlete. Had that great race in Bad Pyrmont early in the season in those German Open Championships. We're back with the men again. And it looks as though the men are coming back towards the end of the bike. They were on lap 3, and this is looks like Jonathan Hall has got away here. Hall, he's done a 51.30 bike split, so that's very, very quick by Hall. He'll have to pick his bike up, because if he doesn't rack it, he'll get a time penalty, or they might even disqualify him. But no, there we are, he corrects that, and now he's out on the final 5-kilometer run. So Jonathan Hall, this is a bit of a turn-up. Where is the likes of Storm and Norman Stadler, Ernst Delsberger, Bentley, Andrew Noble, who set that early pace, and what can Maurizio Salazar do, the runner? He's in that pack, that second pack, but have they bitten off too much? I don't know. He's certainly out on that final discipline. Here they come. Here comes Andrew Noble, second into the bike park. You can see it's pretty empty. It's like Hugh Maas is just going through, or Edwin van Dort and Hugh Maas has just gone through. There's Kotowski, the Czech athlete. I called him from Poland earlier on, but of course he's from the Czech Republic. This is Stadler, so it's fast and hectic. Look at that huge bike park there. What a lovely place for a transition. Just see the finish area, which we'll see in a few minutes when they come down through, then finish. But it's getting pretty hectic in here now. Look at all these athletes coming here. A load of Italians. Lorenzo is in there. Looks like Eduardo Arano, another Italian going out through. There's Van Dort going through with Noble. There's Hugh Maas with Kotowski. So they've got a lot of work to do out there. They've slipped over a minute behind Jonathan Hall. So he really has done the business on the bike, and that it could cause them a few problems in this final discipline. This is Dirk Strothman of Germany. Had a good run at Bad Woltersdorf, but he's well off the pace at the moment. He's down in 35th position. So some more men come into the bike park. And look at this. This is chaos, isn't it? That's Samina Torsani, the Italian, was in there. Tony Zonghorst from New Zealand also in there. That's Torsani just going through. This is Zonghorst, the New Zealand athlete. He's come a long way for these races, and it's good to see. Markus Schnitzer, the German athlete, just running out. Well, I think you'll agree, this is pretty exciting stuff. And they stream out now. Remember, they started just to the right of the picture around this Roman amphitheatre, and now they're out onto the final discipline, the 5-kilometre run course. But these athletes are something like 3 minutes behind the leader, Jonathan Hall. He's a kilometre or so down the road, so he's well into the last 5 kilometres as they're now just setting out onto their final discipline. Now we've got to wait for the women. And these are the standings of the men after the bike section. There we are. He's a minute up on Edwin van Dort and Andrew Noble, and Steve True is down there in the transition area.
Well, we've seen some fantastic things out here on the 40-kilometre cycle ride. People have been saying that you could get through on duathlon and triathlon by being a strong swimmer or a strong runner and just hanging in there on the cycle. Jonathan Hall from Australia has proved that that's completely wrong. He has singly time-trialled his way to the front, and he came into that transition area with a lead of just 1 minute with only 5 kilometres to go. Strongest runner, Mario Salazar from Mexico. He was in 9th place out of transition. It's all to play for on the 5-kilometre run, but my money is on Jonathan Hall from Australia.
Well, we'll see if Steve True is right. Certainly he did the business, but I'm not sure if the pack worked too much together. I think they're a little inexperienced. But this is the woman. This is Cherry going through. Gallagher was first out in, she had a 57.38 bike split. She was the quickest. Susanna Nedergaard, Lucy Smith, they were all up there, as was Natasha Babin. We haven't seen her yet, but she recorded the fastest bike split of 55 minutes and 31 seconds. Well, as you digest that, we'll go for a short break. Stages of the Duathlon World Championships from Ferrara in Italy, and it's still the Australian Jonathan Hall who had that cracking bike ride, broke clear 52 seconds, went out onto this final 5-kilometre run with that just under a minute lead, and he's looking fairly good at the moment, and he's got some great advice. Beside him is Orlando Pizzolata speaking into the radio, going back to the commentator on site, who's, I'm sure, blasting everyone with the news, what's happening up front, and it's still Jonathan Hall. Looks fairly composed and relaxed, but he's got some good runners behind him, you know, the likes of Tim Bentley and Mauricio Salazar. Here we are, here's the chasing pack. That's Noble on the left. This is Bentley, who's trying to get a bit of action going here. Kostovsky, the Czech Republic athlete, is in fourth position, but Bentley now stretching out, and he can look up the road, and no doubt he can see his fellow compatriot Jonathan Hall. Look at that. Is that a grimace? He really is working hard now. He's really prepared just about ideally for this event. They've just come down from altitude, him and Noble. Bentley and Noble have been training at altitude. I don't think Jonathan Hall has been up there because he's the running background. This is Noble. Just saying that Hall has the running background, but he's not a bad runner for sure, and a minute for most people would be enough. What can the Czech athlete do? He really has come from nowhere. We don't know much about him at all. And this is him. He says, well, he's pretty modest. He says, I'm a good duathlete. I'm happy with running and cycling. But as for the legal drafting, I don't really know about that. I just have to accept it, try it, and see what happens. That's the Czech athlete, and this is the lead woman. The world triathlon champion, Jackie Gallagher, is doing the business here. She's on the PAV of Ferrara. That's the cobblestones. And Lucy Smith looks as though she's in second place now, with Susanna Nedergaard in third. I don't know what's happened to Valentina Taucheri. She was up there. She must have dropped off just a little bit. We understand that Tasha Babman is just behind Nedergaard. Nedergaard, the runner, as is Lucy Smith and Jackie Gallagher. So we've got 3 fine runners. This is Stadler coming through with Huub Maas beside him. Stadler had a disappointing year last year. He started well at Bad Pyrmont in the European Cup, but he's faded a little bit. And I don't think this drafting has helped him too much on this, because he is one of the better bikers, but he certainly couldn't live with the leader there, Jonathan Hall, who's got company, and the company is another Australian. It's Andrew Noble. Tim Bentley's just behind. This is Lucy Smith and Susanna Nedergaard now, in second and third places respectively. So can Lucy Smith respond? Nedergaard has worked very, very hard to come up through to catch her, and being a runner, she'll know that she's got to go right past, no time for a chat. But Lucy Smith is also a national caliber athlete. I understand she's run 33 minutes for 10K, so that's pretty quick. Going past one of the junior athletes there. Everyone's on the course. Fortunately, there's only one lap to finish, so it's not too confusing. But Nedergaard, wow, look at this. That's the way to respond by Lucy Smith. She dug deep there and went away again. Well, our leader has company, Noble. I'm sure he's not going to talk to his mate. There's no, what you're doing, mate, now, is it? He's straight past his Noble, because he knows if he can get clear on this tricky technical course, then if he's out of sight, it's out of mind. So Noble really is stretching out here. Can Jonathan Hall respond? It doesn't look like at the moment that there's any response at all from Hall. Pete Salada, come on, give him some advice. This is a bit short for Pete Salada, though Pete Salada, of course, has done a couple of duathlons in his time, but he had problems on the bike, like our countryman Steve Ovett, the great runner who went to duathlon, had a bit of a crash, and I think Pete Salada has retired from the sport, as has Ovett at the moment. But it's still Jonathan Hall in second position, behind Andrew Noble leading. So Noble, all this high altitude work seems to be paying dividends. Good race in Calais just a week or so ago. So he's well over halfway. He's not far from the finish line, and he looks back, and that's a bit of a telltale sign that he could be struggling a little bit. But he certainly looks determined, doesn't he? Look at that determination all over his face. Good performance by Andrew Noble, but is it good enough? If we look back down the road, I'm sure we'll see some other athletes. He can look across into the reflections. Well, he's heard something. He looks back, and what he can see is Bentley and Kotowski, the Czech athlete, running him down. There we are. We've got all three of them there. So they've passed Jonathan Hall. Bentley's very ungainly runner, but he doesn't really, he really does eat up the ground, doesn't he? Not the classic style. Certainly the Czech athlete looks a little more relaxed, although he looks a little stiff in the upper torso. But Bentley's pumping those arms away. He can see what he's got to do. Now Bentley, highest position in these World Championships, was 6th in Hobart a couple of years ago. And of course the Australians do have a bit of a tradition in this. Of course Greg Welsh won it back in 1993, and another man from down under, but from New Zealand, won it 2 consecutive years in 1991 and 92. That was Dr. Matt Brick. Bentley really is stretching out here though, with Kotowski hanging in. Doesn't look like the old Czech wants to give in, does he? Just to remind you, last year in Cancun, Mexico, it was Oster Galindez. He's not here, but the second place athlete, Ernst Delsberger, is. And Delsberger is blown. He's really off the pace. So it's still Andrew Noble. It's Australia 1 and Australia 2 at the moment. Well, we've had clean sweeps before, not in duathlon, but triathlon. I remember in 1990 when Welsh won in Orlando, there was 1, 2, 3 for Australia. Are we going to have it here? At the moment it's 1-2 with a Czech athlete in third position. Well, they've caught him up. Well, that's Kotowski blown. He's looking around. That means he's a little tired. But Bentley's stretching out here, but Noble's off again. He's not going to give in, is he, Noble? He's stretched out again. He smelt Bentley and said, come on, if you're going to win this championships, this world title, you're going to have to earn it. And look at this, Noble's gone off again. What a great performance by Andrew Noble, the Australian from Queenstown. And Tim Bentley in second position, also from Australia. Kotowski looks like he's threatening Bentley now. Well, Bentley really did push hard to get Noble, and perhaps he shot his boat. He really does look ungainly. He runs like Huub Maas, the Dutchman, who's back in, what, 4th or 5th position at the moment. In fact, I understand he's down in 9th position. He's fallen off. Salazar is in 4th position. He's most probably the classiest runner of them all. But you can see him way back down the road with Edwin van Dor, and Jonathan Hall has been passed by both of those. Hall has gone down to 6th position. So at the moment it's Andrew Noble, and he hasn't got far to go. The Australian could be victory here for Andrew Noble. Finished 3rd in those Duathlon World Championships in Hobart. Last year he wasn't anywhere. So third is his best position, and he's going to certainly go two better than that today. It's Andrew Noble coming up to the finish line. What a performance by Noble. And Kotowski, the Czech athlete, has gone past Bentley to take the silver medal. So it's Australia 1, Czech 2, and Australia 3. What a great performance. 1 hour, 35 minutes and 8 seconds was Noble time. Salazar comes through to take fourth position just outside of the podium.
Andrew, we saw you race in Calais last weekend, and you had a fantastic victory there in the European Duathlon. Now, you must be absolutely delighted with the victory here today, the best in the world.
Yeah, I'm very happy. Last week, I thought I was at my best, and I thought my race was last week, but I was lucky enough today to come through and still feel good. And my fellow countryman, John O'Hall, did an excellent job out the front. It's very gutsy, and good on him for finishing where he finished.
Andrew, I know you've been training at altitude for a few weeks along with Tim Bentley. Do you think that had a significant difference to play today?
Definitely the altitude had a big difference, but also the training partner, Tim Bentley. We pushed each other every day in training, pushed hard, and today it was very close between us as well.
So can we say now Australia's #1 in the world for duathlon and triathlon with the Sydney 2000 coming up?
Yeah, maybe after today and after Cleveland it's good with Jackie Gallagher, and we'll just have to see.
Andrew Noble, 1996 World Duathlon Champion.
Well, there's the Frenchman. In fact, Australia did take the team prize. But for the woman, well, it's going to be an Australian double, so it seems. This is Jackie Gallagher. So just to reiterate, Noble was 1 hour 35 and 8 seconds, and 4 seconds adrift was Kotowski, and another couple of seconds later, Tim Bentley. But Jackie Gallagher, the woman of the moment, now is back into the Roman amphitheatre, and she's going to take her second world title in just under a month. Wow, Brett Sutton, her coach, she used to be coached by Rod Sodaro for 6 years as a runner. When she turned to the sport of multi-sport, Brett Sutton took over, and what a job he's done with her. He's really got her mind together. She grabs the Australian flag to take it to that finish line. What a performance by Gallagher. 31.50, that opening 10-kilometer run. 57 minutes and 38 seconds was her bike split, and 15.18 her run.
Jackie Gallagher, just 3 weeks ago in Cleveland, the World Triathlon Champion. Now, to do the double, the World Duathlon Champion. It must have been fantastic out there, but it must have been so hard.
It was pretty hard. I was so psyched for the World Triathlon Championships, and to come off a real mental high like that and to get back up was really hard, but I was determined. I really wanted to do it.
Well, it seems to me that Australia just seems to be dominating the world of triathlon and duathlon now. How can you put that down? What's happening down there?
I think it's just so competitive. We're all racing each other all the time, and we all want to be better, so we're just pushing each other to improve all the time.
And for Sydney 2000, it's going to be Australia 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, it's a fair way away yet, but we're certainly going to try.
Jackie Gallagher, 1996 World Triathlon and Duathlon Champion.
Well, unfortunately, they didn't win the team prize. That went to Switzerland. Australia finished second for the women, and the Canadians third. Lucy Smith was second. That's Lino Baranchur from Portugal with Luis, the Portuguese organizer. And it looks as though Mario Oberby has also retained her world title in the junior division. Well, there we are. What an exciting race of these World Duathlon Championships in Ferrara. Andrew Noble is the world men's champion, and the women's world champion, another Australian, Jackie Gallagher. For Great Britain, well, Tom Doherty was 48th and Ray Johnston 49th. Taylor had a few problems on the bike after that great opening run. And for the women, Kate Burge finished 10th, good old Kate, and 17th, Fiona Lothian. So they're both in fine fettle, but they couldn't stop the Australian men winning the team event and the Swiss women, the women's team event. Well, I think you'll agree these World Championships for Duathlon, the 7th running of the World Duathlon Championships from here in Ferrara, Italy, were a great success. Next year, we move to Guernica in Spain. But let's just savor these closing moments of the Duathlon World Championships. This is Ian Sweet. Thanks to Steve True on site. We're wishing you well. See you next time here on Eurosport.